Welcome to France 24, the news bulletin of France Today and Central Milano for Monday, May 18th, 2026 on francetoday.com, in podcast form via AI chatbot and on the medium wave band at 1,575 kilohertz. From Nice, Marco Hugo Barsati. From Paris, Rachel Costa. Cannes, the revolt of French cinema against Canal Plus and Vincent Bolloré, aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, positioned in the Red Sea, green gasoline at 2.046 euros per liter, weather in Paris, Monte Carlo, and Milan. Why the growing dominance of Vincent Bolloré over cinema worries professionals of the seventh art during the Cannes Festival. In the midst of the Cannes Festival, about 600 actors, directors, producers, and technicians signed a tribune published in Libération to denounce the increasingly strong influence of Vincent Bolloré on the cinematic world. The concern stems from Canal Plus's plan, in which Bolloré is a reference shareholder, to acquire the entire capital of UGC, the third largest cinema chain in France, with 48 cinemas and more than 500 screens. After purchasing 34% of the company last autumn, Canal Plus aims to own 100% by 2028. The signatories fear that the concentration of power, from pre-financing to distribution and exhibition, will limit content diversity and creative freedom. Every market concentration phenomenon occurs at the expense of the variety of works and a rich offering, threatening the public's ability to discover them, warned the Independent Filmmakers Association ACID. Canal Plus board chairman Maxime Sadas responded by calling the petition an injustice toward Canal Plus employees and declared that he would no longer collaborate with anyone who signed the document. The Zapper Bolloré Collective, which promoted the Tribune, interpreted his statement as confirmation of the perceived threats. Among the signatories were actors such as Swan Arlaud, Juliette Binoche, Jean-Pascal Zadi, Adèle Haenel, and directors like Raymond Depardon and Arthur Harari. Rosalie Brunn, General Delegate of the Directors Society, warned of an additional tightening in a sector already afflicted by declining cinema attendance. Director Pierre Salvadori, who presented La Venere Elettrica at Cannes, acknowledged the emotion and the unease, but emphasized that Canal Plus must respect clauses on diversity, volume, and independence guarantees. He also warned, "I will not make any more films if I am not given freedom." Editorial note: will he really not make any more films if he is not given freedom? It sounds to us like Canal Plus is the one that just said it will no longer finance him. But let us move on. Beyond cinema, unions, publishing houses, and artists denounced Bolloré growing influence over the media. Numerous authors protested the dismissal of Olivier Nora from the Grasset publishing house, while singer-songwriter Dominique A. decided to boycott concert venues operated by Bolloré's group. Politically, Communist Senator Jeremy Bacci called the acquisition a potential danger to creative freedom and cultural pluralism, urging stricter regulation of large financing groups. Other legislators called for a framework to prevent an unbridled capitalism. In short, the issue raised at Cannes is not only about a possible oligopoly in distribution, but also about the fear that a single media empire, guided by a figure with a strong ideological imprint, could control the entire life cycle of a film, from creation to screening, compromising cultural diversity and artistic freedom. The protest by cinema professionals reflects a growing anxiety about media concentration in France, set against a broader debate on independence and cultural pluralism. Fact check by GPT-OS 20B. Editorial. Many thoughts come to mind when commenting on this French cinema revolt against one of its biggest financiers, the Canal Plus Group. As we also know in Italy, just look at how many films start with the Studio Canal logo. But the best comment, as often happens, comes from the mayor of Cannes and possible future French president David Lisnard. The tweet from David Lisnard: "I have just read the indignant reactions to Canal Plus's stance after the Tribune signed by 600 cinema professionals. This is a genuine case of accusatory reversal. Let's look at the facts. The Tribune attacks Canal Plus, the main financier of French cinema, and calls for a boycott of Bolloré. Yet this position is simultaneously unfounded because everyone agrees there is no interference by Canal in film content. Just look at the works presented at Cannes and financed by Canal. -I. Ingrateful. since many of the signatories have been financed or supported by the very group they are attacking. A bit masochistic because one can easily imagine that the one being denigrated, the one supposed to be boycotted, might in turn try to boycott the signatories. Rather than signing a tribune, every co-signatory could have refused Canal Plus financing and, like any other venture, turned to banks, presented their project, and assumed the risk. The word to Rachel. Good morning from Paris. I am Rachel Costa. Let us continue with the news bulletin. The aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle positioned in the Red Sea in case of a mission to restore navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. The delegated minister for the armed forces, Alice Ruffo, announced that the French carrier Charles de Gaulle and its air naval group have arrived, quote, in the area off the Arabian Peninsula, ready to intervene quickly should a neutral mission be launched to guarantee free maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. She specified that the vessel passed through the Suez Canal on May 6th, stopped for several days in Djibouti, where France maintains an operational base, and is now in the area in the Red Sea, away from the belligerent actors. The objective is defensive, to restore freedom of navigation without adopting offensive measures, in full respect of international law. The presence of Charles de Gaulle in the region allows Paris to assess the situation and contribute diplomatically. In coordination with a maritime coalition of about 40 non-belligerent countries that is planning a multinational mission to secure the strait should Iran and the United States decide to remove their respective blockades. Context: growing tension between Iran, the United States, and Israel in the Persian Gulf, with concerns for the safety of oil traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Fact check by GPTOSS 20B. I now read my editorial. Editorial by Rachel, the carrier that sails in paradox. Here we are again, contemplating the great French art of strategic positioning, sending the Charles de Gaulle to the area with its entire air naval group, announcing it with fanfare, and at the same time specifying that we will intervene only when the war is over and the Strait of Hormuz is already peacefully open. Minister Alice Ruffo tells us, in a very serious tone, that the ship crossed Suez on May 6th, took its coffee break in Djibouti, French base obviously, and now floats in the Red Sea, away from the belligerent actors. A neutral mission, defensive, respectful of international law. In practice, we are ready to intervene quickly when there is no longer any need to intervene. A masterpiece of timing. It is a bit like shouting, "I called the fire brigade," while the house is still burning, but specifying that they will only arrive once the flames have gone out on their own. In the meantime, the carrier puts on a show. French diplomacy assesses the situation and coordinates with 40 countries equally determined to do something, as long as it is not concrete too early. Macron and his circle seem specialized in this genre of gestures, imposing movements that communicate strength, followed by caveats that turn the strength into a theatrical shadow. Charles de Gaulle is not there to open the strait. It is there to demonstrate that France is present while waiting for the strait to open by itself. A sophisticated form of passive activism seasoned with a lot of press releases. In the end, one wonders, does it take more courage to send a carrier or to state clearly that we will not use it until it becomes unnecessary? In either case, the ship sails. The paradox stays afloat. Koan of the day. A monk asked Cao Zhou, "Master, why send a great warship to the area if you say you will intervene only when the war is already finished?" Cao Zhou replied, "Because the ship loves to travel, and the commander likes to announce that it has arrived." The monk persisted, "Then is it useful or useless?" Cao Zhou said, "It is useful to those who must appear useful. It is useless to those who truly need to open the strait. The ship is exactly where it is needed, between the two truths." Green gasoline at €2.046 per liter for SP95E10, €2.139 for SP98. Gasoline prices reach a new record since the start of the war in Iran. The price per liter of SP95E10 in France averaged €2.046, about 33 cents more than on February 27, the date before the first Israeli-American attacks on Iran. The increase, almost 19%, was calculated by AFP from data of about 7,206 stations reported on a government Website. The most expensive fuel, SP98, averaged 2.139 euros per liter, a rise of a little over 31 cents compared with the same reference period, corresponding to an increase of more than 17%. Diesel, more consumed in France, remained at high levels, 2.145 euros per liter, but still below the peak of 2.387 euros recorded at the beginning of April, according to data from about 9,456 stations. The price surge pushed consumers to drastically reduce fuel purchases. In the first 10 days of May, sales fell by about 300 million euros, with consumption estimated to have dropped around 30%. Economy Minister Sébastien Lecornu commented on X that the decline is due to the strong price increase, while negotiations between Iran and the United States show no sign of rapid resolution. This summary is based on AFP data from more than 7,000 fuel distributors in France. Fact-checked by GPTR 20B. French Press Review. You are listening to News from France, and the word on Centrale Milano, 15,750 kilohertz, and on Radio Nice. Welcome to the French Press Review. I am Rachel Costa, broadcasting from Paris. OM in Europe, a final light in the tumultuous Ligue 1 season. Olympique de Marseille secured the last spot in the Europa League, with a victory over Lille. The result closes a campaign marked by highs and lows, in which the club fought to regain balance. The coach celebrates the return to Europe as a small miracle for the fans. The club hopes to use the new adventure to strengthen the squad for the next season. Supporters celebrate with chants near the Velodrome, while rivals watch with envy. BFM. Fertilizer blockade in the Strait of Hormuz threatens global agriculture. Iranian authorities have halted the transit of fertilizers through maritime traffic. The measure responds to international pressure linked to sanctions. Experts predict an impact on the global harvest of many cereals. The G7 is preparing an emergency meeting in Paris to coordinate countermeasures. European producers fear food price increases by the end of the year. The European Union Council warns of possible shortages in the most vulnerable countries. France Info. Sexual violations, heavy accusations against Patrick Bruel. Actress Flavie Flamette filed a rape complaint against the singer and actor. Dozens of women have reported episodes of violence and harassment in recent months. Patrick Bruel has denied all accusations, calling the reports absurdly unfounded. The case has spotlighted power dynamics and victim protection in France. Authorities have opened an investigation to assess the credibility of the testimonies. The public remains divided between the singer's supporters and the victims demanding justice. BFM Business. G7 finance meeting in Paris. The new front of the global crisis. The French economy minister hosted finance ministers from the G7 countries. The goal is to coordinate policies to address the economic repercussions of the war in the Middle East. Topics include energy taxes and sanctions against Iran. Delegations discussed measures to support agricultural sectors hit by the fertilizer blockade. A joint communiqué announced an emergency aid package for the most vulnerable member states. Analysts fear that tensions could fuel a new wave of inflation. BFM Business. Record gasoline price. 2.046 euros per liter for SP95 E10. Gasoline prices in France have topped 2,000 euros per liter, the highest since the war in Iran began. The increase is due to the disruption of commercial routes in the Strait of Hormuz. The government announced a support package for carriers and the most affected consumers. Service stations report fuel shortages caused by import restrictions. Truckers' unions demand higher subsidies to offset the added burden. Experts warn the peak could last weeks, if not months. BFM Business. Zero growth, rising unemployment, the French economy's balance sheet. The economy minister declared that France withstands the winds ahead. Gross domestic product remained flat at 0% in the first quarter, while unemployment rose. Energy price pressures have reduced household spending power. The government launched an incentive program for firms investing in renewable energy. Opponents call for a deeper review of fiscal policies to boost employment. Parliamentary debate is heated over the need for new structural reforms. BFM Business. World executions. 2,707 people killed in 2025, the highest peak ever. Amnesty International reports that executions reached 2,707 cases in 2025, a historic maximum. Most deaths occurred in countries where capital punishment is still applied. The report denounces a lack of transparency and monitoring by international authorities. Human rights organizations call for a global moratorium on the death penalty. The United Nations announced a new discussion forum to consider legislative reforms. The issue has reignited debate on fundamental rights in many regions. BFM Business. Samsung risk of a 50,000 worker strike in South Korea. The South Korean government warned that a one-day strike at Samsung's semiconductor plant could cost up to 1,000 billion won. Salary negotiations between unions and management have been stalled for months. The Ministry of Labor proposed emergency arbitration to avoid irreparable damage. Workers demand better conditions and a wage increase that matches inflation. Samsung shares have fallen sharply, reflecting market uncertainty. Analysts predict a significant impact on the global chip supply chain. BFM Business. Data breach at Gates de France, 389,000 customers affected. The tourism portal suffered a cyber attack that exposed personal data of hundreds of thousands of users. Data protection authorities have launched an investigation to determine the damage. The group pledged to strengthen security measures and inform affected users. Cybersecurity experts warn that attacks of this type could increase during the high-demand season. Consumer associations demand stronger privacy guarantees for travelers. The case draws attention to the vulnerability of online booking systems. BFM Business. Salary transparency, the taboo topic of human resources departments in France. Human resources departments at many companies are reluctant to share employee compensation ranges. A recent survey suggests that transparency could improve equity and reduce the gender pay gap. The government is considering regulations to require companies to publish salary data. Trade unions welcome the proposal, calling it a small revolution. Larger firms have already begun experimenting with more open remuneration systems. The debate remains lively over how to balance employee privacy with the need for fairness. BFM Business. Mercedes-Benz evaluates entry into the defense sector. The CEO of Mercedes-Benz announced that the company is evaluating diversification into the defense industry. The announcement comes in response to an increasingly unpredictable geopolitical context. The firm would leverage its engineering expertise to produce advanced military vehicles. Shareholders are divided. Some see growth potential, others fear ethical risks. Regulators will need to assess the implications of deeper automotive involvement in defense. Mercedes-Benz's interest adds to a trend of other car makers exploring military markets. BFM Business. Louis Vuitton launches a cruise fashion show at the Frick Collection in New York. The luxury brand organized a fashion show aboard an exclusive cruise ship at the Frick Museum. The event, a world first, blends high fashion with classic art in a unique setting. Prominent guests and influencers attended the debut of a collection inspired by the North Sea. Louis Vuitton highlighted the importance of bringing fashion to new horizons. The New York audience received the fusion of culture and design enthusiastically. Market analysts predict a sales boost from this branding strategy. BFM Business. Alphabet, Google, records $1 million of profit in 4 minutes. The technology giant generated $1 million of earnings in less than 4 minutes. The result surpasses competitors such as Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft in the same time frame. The profit was driven by online advertising and growth in cloud services. Investors praised the speed of monetizing new products. The CEO said operational efficiency remains a key future objective. Financial experts forecast continued expansion of profit margins for Alphabet. Yes, the brew efficiency saga continues. A singer declares, "I have never touched a woman," while public opinion feeds on testimonies more dramatic than a reality show. The judiciary is already ready to summarize the saga as a longer episode than the concert. A true spectacle of self-pity, where truth is only an encore of empty chatter. Nothing is more entertaining than a famous person playing hide-and-seek with justice. Online, on X and Mastodon, on all smart speakers, and on the medium wave band, you are listening to Radio Nice with Centrale Milano 15,750 kHz. Weather in Paris and Milan for Monday, May 18th, 2026. Paris A. Cloudy day with rain showers. Updated forecasts from expert Regis Crepé, updated at 3:30, good reliability, show that morning in Paris opens under a very cloudy sky, temperatures around 10 degrees Celsius, and a northwest wind at 25 kilometers per hour, with no rain. In the afternoon, clouds thicken, allowing brief bright spots of sun. Temperature rises to 15 degrees Celsius, and the wind shifts to southwest at 35 kilometers per hour, with a 60% chance of light showers. Evening remains very cloudy. Temperature drops to 14 degrees. Wind moderates from southwest at 30 kilometers per hour, and rain probability stays at 40%. During the night, the minimum temperature reaches 11 degrees. Wind eases to 20 kilometers per hour from the south, and occasional rain may occur with a 25% chance. In sum, a typical Parisian spring day with a low of 9 degrees, a high of 15 degrees, variable winds and occasional sprinkles. Milan, from scattered clouds to evening rain. According to the bulletin updated by expert Daniele Berlusconi of 3B Meteo, updated at 7:26, 80% reliability, Milan starts the day with scattered clouds and clear patches, temperatures around 14 degrees. Light north-northeast wind at 6 kilometers per hour, and no precipitation. By midday, clouds become denser. Temperature rises to 21 degrees, and the wind shifts to south-southwest, moderate but steady, with a slight chance of isolated showers, especially in the late afternoon. In the afternoon, the situation becomes more humid. Clouds turn into thicker layers. Temperature holds at 21 degrees. Wind stays south-southwest at 12 kilometers per hour, and brief rain showers are expected with accumulations of about 2 millimeters. Evening brings more cloud cover. Temperature drops to 16 degrees. Wind remains moderate from south-southwest, and evening precipitation may reach 3 millimeters, followed by a drier night with lows around 14 degrees and light south wind. In summary, the day forecasts lows of 14 degrees, highs of 21 degrees, variable winds from 6 to 12 kilometers per hour, and a few rain showers late in the evening. Rachel. Editorial weather by Rachel. Rain, sun, and the usual climate drama. It is truly surprising how every drop of rain is turned into a sign of the end of the world, when the real drama is Milan traffic grinding to a halt under a light drizzle. And instead of asking why the thermometer reads 15 degrees in Paris, all the experts unleash climate change terror, as if an extra cloud proves the earth is imploding. But really, is the sky more capricious than our sense of guilt? If you wake up without an umbrella in Paris, is it perhaps the sun's fault for deciding to pee? The hypothesis is as fascinating as it is slippery. Weather stations keep giving numbers. We keep giving judgments. It is easier to say a 30 kilometer per hour wind in Paris is a signal of global crisis than to accept that the prevailing direction simply changed. In Milan, evening rain is instantly labeled an ecological warning, while the real problem is people ending up in boots for no reason. Maybe it is time to stop attributing every climate shift to a single rainy day and focus on what truly matters. Hot coffee and good company under the rain. Koan of the day. The monk asked Zhao Zhou, if tomorrow it rains in Milan but shines in Paris, which city is more under the sky? Zhao Zhou answered, the sky is the same for anyone who contemplates it, but the one who carries an umbrella walks more lightly. And that is today's weather. Closing. Online, on X and Mastodon, on all smart speakers and on the medium wave band. This is France Today with Centrale Milano 15,750 kHz.